just seeing things?
Nope, you are correct. Those are little barnacles. If you zoom in a little tighter, you'll see them.
Wow.
Wow.
So I think this kind of encrusting barnacle, I think they're called balanoid, that group of barnacles that kind of look what most of us know what near the surface, what they look like. And
Is that a coral?
I guess so.
It's dead.
Or it could be a hydrozoan.
Wild.
Yeah, it's not looking all
right,
that
come
healthy.
wide, please. Beautiful looking black coral there.
Yeah, that's a beautiful Bathopathes, I think. Beautiful.
That one seems to have a bunch bigger on the right than on the left side. Is that normal?
Maybe its workouts aren't all that even, but yeah, it's I see what you're talking about. I don't know. I agree. I could swear there's a sponge over there to the left.
There it is, sneaking behind the back of the rock.
Right there.
Too many buttons.
Quite the dance.
Oh, okay. Roger.
Who are you?
Some big sticky outy things up on the horizon there.
Yeah, we might see if we can visit that next. But
Want to look at the sponge first?
Yeah. Oh, of course.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yes. Your team sponge.
Kind of a nestled in spot here. Let's see.
It's a cool little spot. Nice spot for a picnic.
Okay, I think this is another one of these polyopogon that's grappled to the surface, but this will actually show a nice side view of how it attaches.
Yeah, look at that.
Pretty far away, but it's kind of squeezy in there.
Yeah. Boy, he's got a lot of folds on him. He's pretty weird looking.
Looks kind of dusty and dirty. Is it in the process of dying, or what's the story there?
I don't know. I know what you're saying. I don't know why it's got a little brown. It's possible, or it possibly just got a little bit sedimented or something. I don't know.
Cool. Okay, thank you.
Anyway, yeah, thank you.
Let's see what these long stick-looking things are. I'm going totally the wrong way, but it's just go for it anyway.
Spars, 8 sponges?
They're not spines, but they can have rays of some of the, what they call the dermalia, the spicules near the surface, stick out and give it a sort of a fussy
Whoa.
Nice.
So we do have a request for one of these branch ones,
and
but
play
it's
along
just
this contour?
Yeah, they're just so long.
Bridge nav, hold position there.
You wanted to do what with this, Chris?
Well, no, I was just mentioning that we have a collecting request if we ever see a small one of these, but if you could zoom on the joint, right, exactly where the two branches connect, maybe on that one on the left.
Sure.
Might be informative to the people who are interested in this thing.
We can look at the whole thing. How about?
Okay.
It's actually pointed towards us, so good luck focusing, Aaron. You can zoom.
So it's a bamboo. See, because the tissue's missing near the base, and you see the first couple nodes on it. I'm going to have to email the person who is very interested in these and find out whether he absolutely needs the connection point or whether just a piece of this will do the job or what they want to look at.
Some large polyps on them.
Yeah, and typical bamboos, they got kind of a pink-red oral part right there, right where the mouth is. Okay, I haven't been looking at chat. Good morning, Asako Matsumoto. She's calling in from the Chiba Institute in Japan, and she's been watching a lot this morning, which is great. And as she pointed out, she's been seeing those barnacles earlier today that were all over the rocks, and I saw that as well, believe it or not. I was up earlier and couldn't wait to get up here, so I started watching downstairs.
Did
Yeah, you got the view in your room. That's pretty deluxe.
I know. Well, you know, hopefully no one will see a picture of me laying in my PJs with my head propped on a pillow watching the video.
That's living, isn't it?
It absolutely is. There's so much tissue on these joints that it's almost impossible to see exactly where they're branching off from. One of the things they're particularly interested in is it branching from that proteinaceous node, or is it branching from the more calcified internode? And these guys are, that's why I assume that they wanted that joint, because that's informative a lot of times in this group of corals. They're now known as the keratoicidinae. They used to be the isididae.
Nice.
Ice. I wonder what that ISIS. Huh. What that
I got far from that. Oops.
that refers to.
Sponges. How do they contract those filaments to attach to the rock? I mean, if they have little hooks on them, I assume there's some type of contraction
here,
to pull it closer.
Nope.
Go for
The
It
rock.
just
Another
grapples.
move. Well,
Like Velcro.
Yeah, something. That's
do you
exactly a
think?
good
Which
analogy.
way?
Velcro.
It's interesting.
it's pretty flat looking at Argus cam, or what's that thing called? Sonar. Sure. I mean, yeah, right. Cool.
I don't know.
Follow your heart.
All right. Let's just keep going up.
Sure.
All right. Bridge nav, 20 meters, 225. My heart says gotta go to the target. It's there.
Like a true mapper.
Yeah. You know, you guys cheated a little bit because you took a shortcut along the wall. I saw that already. That's why we're here a little bit early.
No
But-
way.
That's pretty good because the wall was pretty good. Pretty nice shortcut. Instead of going the freeway, they took the scenic route.
They did. That's okay. That's what it's all about around
Yeah.
down here.
That's another one of those polyopogon sponges sitting right next to one of those gigantic, massive dead sponge stalks.
What are we doing? 225? Gotta
Oh.
go this way.
What are some of the factors that lead to the demise of a sponge? Do they die of old age, or is it not? Is it more a type of environmental factor, like being pulled up, like that one?
No idea. I think a few things can do that. One thing is you can have these internal waves, these really bursts of water down there that if they're strong enough, they could probably topple a sponge. I did a dive in a submersible many years ago where we were in very high current conditions, and we saw one of these massive sponges rolling across the bottom like a tumbleweed.
Wow.
getting-
Where?
Yeah, and the stock sponge was bent over completely horizontal.
Huh.
So that's one thing.
Roger.
But they can also die, whether it's old age or something else. And
Or get
if it-
clogged up by sediment,
Yeah, get clogged up by sediment.
but nothing really eats them down here.
There's sea stars that'll eat them.
Oh,
There's a group of sea stars in a genus called Pythonaster, which we think is actually predating on sponges. Bit of a very white sea star. If we see one of those on there, we'll zoom in on it as sort of an example of predation down at these depths.
Can you come down in Delta, please?
Oh, wait, beach ball.
We have a question from a 7-year-old, Audie.
Uh-huh.
What's the difference between the brittle star and a sea star?
Let's see. I wish Chris Ma was on here to answer that question. So, yes. They're in different family. Now, what defines the two families? You know, I am sorry. I'm gonna have to do a little research on that. That's a very good question because they, to all of us, they look a bit similar. But brittle stars tend to have, in general, I can't even say that.
You can keep coming down to like 12.
Okay.
I'm pretty far out ahead.
I'm gonna find that out. But another way you can take a look. In fact, I'm gonna go on to Google and see
My
what
altitude's
Google
7
says about
meters.
that.
Your altitude is what?
Right?
25?
Never mind.
There's a fish back there.
Yeah, there's a swimmy guy back
Getting
there.
really weird readings.
Yeah, the altimeter's silly.
Yeah.
It's probably
never
bouncing
mind.
off the tether.
All good.
Okay, you can zoom in on the, what you call it, spongy thing?
No, the swimmy thing.
Okay,
The swimming thing.
you ready for this?
Sure.
Can I pretend that I knew this before I looked it up on Google?
Yes.
You're the
Okay.
scientist.
The key difference between starfish and brittle star is the mode of movement. Starfish use the tube feet for their movement, whereas brittle stars move using their long arms. Additionally, the sea star has a complete digestive system in both a mouth and a rear end. And starfish, also starfish has shorter arms while brittle stars have longer arms.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, good question.
There's
Very
a little
good question.
star on that sponge now.
Yeah, this is another one of these massive polyopogon. And how they attach is really an important factor of diagnostic feature to pay attention to when you're trying to identify sponges from video.
All right, come wide, please.
So that's a pretty good size polyopogon too.
I'm going to go back towards our place we're going. This rock specifically. Good looking rock.
Oh, I like that rock.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a guy. It's a spongy guy.
Mushroom looking sponge.
Ooh, another anemone. Is that anemone down there?
So this sponge, when we get up to it, I think it's going to be one that was just recently described.
Cool.
Kind of interesting.
Nice diversity on this rock.
Let's leave some surprise in the bank. Can you zoom in, please? Keep that sponge base in view.
Yeah, so this shows you the difference between how they attach. This particular sponge glues itself onto the substrate. It doesn't grapple like the one we just looked at. So that's
on Argus if Trevor's okay with it.
what's so important about that is you can narrow down your options as to what type of sponge it is. Of course, it has a stalk, and the one we just looked at doesn't have a stalk. Yet another difference that we can use to narrow down our choices. And as we get up to this guy, if you were to, which you can't because it's facing in the rock, but if you were to turn around and look at the other face, you would see E.T.
E.T.
What?
E.T.
I want to see it.
Yeah,
Make it happen.
we call these guys the E.T. sponge, I think, if it's the same one I'm thinking it is. I'm not so positive. E.T. usually has two little holes, I think it could be. Yeah, here we come around, and there should be two big eye holes. We come around in that depression.
I can hardly hear you, Antonov.
Let's see if I'm a liar or not.
That sponge needs Google eyes.
I mean, or it could be Cyclops. I don't know. It's just a single eye, but I think it's going to have two if you come down a little bit level on there. But
I could come down and tilt up.
yeah.
But, yeah, maybe I'll do that.
You're going to do it.
Oh.
You're not going to do it. You're going to make a liar out of me.
There are two.
No,
Looks
there
like
are
they're
two. There's a little septa in between them. No, it's a little bit odd for this new group, just because often they'll have two holes on the other side. But I think this is what's. Oh, there are the eyeballs. There they are. They're coming in. E.T.
I can't look up anymore. That's all the up I've got.
Okay, great. That does it.
Okay,
So-
come wide, please.
So this guy we actually used to call the E.T. sponge, and now we know that it's Advena magnificus.
Ooh, that's a nice name.
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, this was actually described by a couple of Chinese researchers over on the Western Pacific.
Bridge nav, 20 meters, 225.
Oh, and we are very grateful that they
You can wait
put
on
a
Argus.
name to it finally.
Thank you.
Say it again. Advenum
At
magnificus?
Vena
really?
magnificus. Or let me make it sure if it's magnificus or.
Is that better?
Oh, Magnifica.
Okay.
I found
Thanks.
Uh, okay. Magnifica, excuse me. So that's the guy right there, ET.
Oh, yeah. It's beautiful. Definitely looks like ET.
And I said, that's the guy. I brought up the Okeanos Animal Guide and was showing Andy here next to me the picture of him. The next version of this guide, by the way, is going to be a merge of imagery from 4 different institutions and ships, including a lot of Nautilus images. And that's our hope. And we want to just keep building and building and building this guide out, starting first with the Pacific. And
Well, I feel like we're at the target here.
Oh no, we got 28 meters.
Are you kidding? I'm on the target. You're not on the target. I'm on the target.
But let me get closer. Are you on the target?
Yeah, look at that.
you keep them honest, Darren. None of this.
I am on that target. Get out of here.
The target's right there, yo.
Okay, I'll be there in like 8.1 milliseconds.
Well, then we'll be on the target, won't we?
We'll see what Chris picked out of thin air. We'll look at the exact location of the target.
Keep
Well,
going.
Okay, now I'm on the target.
Yeah,
Nope, not yet.
Yeah,
Oh, get out of here.
So
I'll
there
keep
you-
zooming till infinity.
1 centimeter off.
All right, Chris,
Here's
we've
the
reached the target.
So we're going to continue wandering upslope for a little while, and then we're kind of waiting for Dr. Orcutt to wake up. She has one of those nasty late watches, and see if she's satisfied with what she has in the box, because we may terminate this dive a little bit early and kind of get set up for the next one.
Okay. Can we get a feel for what your hopes and dreams are? Do you want to keep, this ridge does flatten out quite a lot. Do you want to keep just marching up that, or would you rather get on the slopey bits? You can see high pack the...
You know what? Why don't we scoot along the slopey bit? So I'm not seeing anything really sterling here on the ridge crest here, because it is a little bit wide.
Okay.
That'd be great. So if you almost did like about a 185 or 190 or something, I think that would.
Yep, roger, that sounds good.
So we want to go up this face?
No, we're going to come
Go
over
to
to these tight...
This cliff part area? Yeah,
Yeah.
that might even be like a 135. Like, I don't
You want
know
to
that
bring the ship off up?
I don't think that'll actually get us.
135 is taking us that way.
135 is taking us this way, which is pretty much upslope. I
What?
figure.
135?
This is reality. That is maybe not quite reality.
I hear ya, but eventually you're going to go downhill.
Well, you want to keep going until we get to the downhill?
Sure.
I think this will bring us back to that cliff interface.
Okay, 135, 20 meters. Bridge nav, 20 meters, 135.
I bet we'll get two or three moves this way, and we can start zipping south. That's my guess.
Okay, pilot, your reputation's on the line here.
Sure.
I think he's going to be right, but
I mean,
we're not going to give it to him until we actually see it.
No.
It should. That's probably the quickest way to get to more steeper terrain.
Yeah, it's going to take us to the contour that will be steepy.
Sponge coming up, Argus view.
Oh yeah, over there to on the port side. A big boy.
big boy. Yeah.
I see that question. Do some creatures not secrete a glue-like substance that's extremely strong? Yes, we were just looking at some of those sponges that instead of gluing themselves, they grapple, they hook onto the substrate, and it's very strong. So that's a good question. We've had the one below that a number of times. Why are there no fish? And the reason for that is because a lot of these deep water fish prefer sandy sediment kind of substrates. They seem to find more food on those rather than the rocks. Not a whole lot that they can eat here on this type of substrate, so that's why we're not seeing too many fish.
Chris, have you talked to Jess
Can I
about
get a
that
zoom on
kind of
Argus?
that sponge adhesion,
To
for
who?
lack of a better word, to Jess?
No, I haven't. Why? Is she particularly interested in that kind of thing?
Yeah, her PhD thesis was in, oh, I'm going to screw up the thing. Non-chemical adhesion, something like that. Suction cups and stuff.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Wow, okay. Well, I will talk with her now as she whips me again in cribbage.
Yeah, there you go.
That sponge is
Can I get a zoom on Argus? Thank you.
that sponge is just on the top of the screen. Another one of these big polyopogon, and then there's kind of a funny little one. There's 3 different species of sponges here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. That's a very good guess. It's small here, but I'll wait. But I think there's in 3 different families of sponges, but maybe that other one on the left is just a small polyopogon.
Bridge nav, another 20 meters, 135.
Pilot, can we get that crinoid sponge first? The one that's got the,
Crinoid sponge.
yeah,
first.
the,
Yeah.
since he's
Yeah.
up.
I'm at the end of the leash, so it'll be,
Oh,
it'll be
okay.
bouncy,
Oh,
but
just the
that's fine.
snap zoom would
Go
work.
ahead and zoom.
The ship's coming that way eventually.
That's the lasagna noodle sponge?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and so
No.
Aphrodite was exactly right. That's what we would call a leaf sponge. It's in the genus Tritopleura, and it's got a feather star on it, which is in the family Chiritometridae, and may even be something we call Glycometra lateralis, but they're fairly common at these depths. Thank you very much for that.
All right, come wide.
And yeah, 2 of the polyopogon, 1 massive, 1 little one.
All sorts of sponges around here.
Yeah, boy, that's
Yeah.
Look at that.
Nice sponge habitat.
these guys finally showed up sort of toward the end.
Perfect.
Where
on
were
time.
you guys? Sleeping late, I'll tell you.
Mm-hmm.
These other 2 in the background are just some other, the same as that massive one to the right. They're in that genus Polyopogon, I believe. What was that?
Poly means many, and apogon, what would that be?
Geez, I just can't hear you. I don't. All right, I'm pulling out my Latin root. Let me see if I can figure it out. Just getting tough questions from your group there. Okay.
Okay, is that better? Yeah.
Poly, you know, P-O-L-I has a bunch of different meanings. One of them is a city. One is the color gray.
I'm gonna go full wide on
There's
Argus.
Paul, P-O-L-L, which is
Thanks.
mean be strong. And let's try apogon, because I don't really know what the root word is, the whole root word. Apogon, where are you?
Oh, yeah. Maybe.
Right.
As long as both ends are secure, it should be all right.
Bridge nav, another 20 meters, 135.
Yeah. It's not as big of a deal if it's on this end, because you can actually get your hands on that end. This end's a lot more critical for that, yeah.
Well,
Maybe this is what we're after, this little ridge edge thing here. Let's find out. It's at the end of my leash, but
Apo means from, off, or away. So I suspect we're
That's
not
our
quite
drop
right
off.
there. But this
I know,
guide is a
thanks.
pretty old guide. I'm not sure it's all that.
Oh,
It's just the
Yeah.
only
Not
thing
telling
I've
you.
got.
No. Just telling you what I
probably
hope.
hasn't changed that much, though.
Hmm?
Latin probably hasn't changed that much,
Yeah, I
though.
know. Well, I suspect we're missing something, that there's more to maybe I don't know. I'm not sure. Sometimes this is spot on, and then other times I can't quite figure out what it's referring to. There's a couple bamboo corals we just passed over. Unbranched bamboos.
a viewer wants to know how sponges form.
Sponges form.
Do they just appear on rocks, or?
Yeah, they release sort of larvae into the water, and then the larvae, once they find a suitable place to settle on, they'll settle out, and they'll just very slowly grow, like a lot of things, sort of cellular division, and get larger and larger. And sponges are very, very simple, so they don't have nearly as the variety of specialized cells as higher animals have. A lot of their body have a very similar structure. And for one, that's convenient for us sponge people, because oftentimes we can take a small sample from the sponge, and we're kind of getting most of the different types of spicules or skeletal parts in a small chunk, because they're fairly uniform. Not completely, but in many cases they are.
And what are the typical organelles in their cells?
The what?
The typical organelles in their cells?
I assume that they've got the standard complement, such as mitochondria and a nucleus and those parts. They also have a lot of times this little filament that they tend to use to create a current in the interior of the sponge. And it's a specialized cell, so there are a number of different types. Of course, they have to have reproductive cells in there as well, and sponges that they use to pulse water through them to feed.
Yeah.
And there's another one of your leaf sponges right now.
Oh.
What?
This one is pretty white.
Yeah. It's looking at
and that sponge at the bottom looks.
Yeah, that's another polyopagon that's actually upside down on the rock. But the one on top, I wonder if we could do a snap zoom on that leaf sponge, because it may not be a leaf sponge. It may be one of these weird ones that we saw a lot of dead ones on the other day, laying on the bottom.
Okay, zoom in on the top sponge there. Thank you. Start with the base and then move up.
If we could rotate around it a little bit. Oh, this is not a leaf sponge. This is one of these sort of weird Koreads.
Skeletor? Is this
Skeletor or something.
But it's the one with the
I can come around it here.
The kind of folded top.
Let's see what we got here. Uh-oh. I'm confused. So we don't have any boxes open for a piece of anything, do we?
Oh, it's a very intricate structure there. It looks like a mitochondria.
Yeah. Do we have any space if we took a
Not
piece
reliably.
of this?
We could try it, but I don't know.
Kainalo, do we have by any chance any place that we could take a small piece of this thing?
Do you copy that?
No, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, could we? It's potentially a collectible if we have a place to put it. I don't want to put it
Come wide on video, please.
Bridge and
best
hold
rock
position.
in case we see one other ones, but I think it would be worth getting a piece of this.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sure. I mean, I'll put it wherever you'd like.
What do you think over there?
I know the
I mean,
boxes kind of look.
We could mix it with something as long as there is enough space, because it's a very distinctive type of sponge. Maybe not with another sponge. Is there one with a coral that has a coral alone, or?
Yeah, but section B has a piece of bubblegum coral. We want to put it.
Yeah, that would be perfect. You
Yeah.
You normally don't want to mix two sponges, because a lot of their parts can be loose and get them mixed up.
I
But
see.
yeah, if we have one
Yeah.
box with just a coral, that would work.
I think B would maybe work best.
Okay, great.
Yeah, thank you. This could be one of these ones that I've been looking for quite a while because it's in a potential genus that I haven't been able to figure out. I can't quite understand what it looks like yet. All right, Andy, quiz question.
Yes.
Why do you think it's got so many folds?
Maximize surface area.
All right. You passed the quiz.
Yeah. Wow, it's pretty good for me for 5 o'clock in the morning.
Very,
Usually
very
brain's not
thin.
functioning.
Well, you know, these massive sponges, the water's got to go through quite a lot through the whole body, and all those cells in there can filter it out.
Mm-hmm.
You know, by the time it comes out the other side, it's pretty clean. But this guy is really thin, so
Yeah.
how does it do effective filtering where it has a lot of folds and things?
It just maybe just focuses on passing more water through over time.
Now, Chris, you said that there are 3 types of sponges.
There are what?
There are 3 types of sponges, you said?
No, there's more.
Oh.
There was a view earlier that looked like there are 3 different types.
Oh,
But yeah,
oh, on that view.
yeah. I can't hear you, Trevor.
Sorry, that was my fault. Do you want me to just take a little snip off the top?
Yeah, that would be perfect. Thank you.
Oops, I'm bigger than I thought it was.
Here's a good sponge factoid. So it says here there are about 5,000 species of sponges, about
Yeah.
97% of which are marine, 3% are
Just
freshwater.
go right there, see what
Yeah.
happens.
This is one of the oldest groups of animals on the planet. It's way down on the taxonomic tree, and they're very ancient. That is beautiful.
Okay, come wide, please. Oh, that's fragile.
Oh, I wish I had my microscope out here with me. I would love to take a look at that this evening. But
Oh, it's going to be a...
yeah, these are brittle sponges. That's why he's being very ginger about this thing. It's very, very fragile.
Boy, this is going to be a slow move. Oh, no.
Oh,
No.
oh my gosh.
Well, do you want zoom in again real quick?
I wonder if you
Do you want this bits or do you want the bits that are floating away?
I wonder if you could chase down that. I mean,
Okay,
I want
come wide.
that bit, but let's see what it looks like when you put it in the box. Excuse me. I've got a sponge in my throat.
Well, at least it's not floating away. It's just stopped there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to try something here. See how this.
Getting
works.
back to
Super
the
vertical.
sponge anatomy itself, I think one of the most unique features of the sponges are the cells that have flagellae, or like little whips that drive the current inside and through the sponge, and so it actively pushes water through its cells. It's not just static,
Not just
sample cell.
passive.
Can you tip
not
bubble up?
passive. Yeah.
I think that's partly why they're so successful, because
Yeah, good there.
they don't have to totally rely on strong current to bring in a lot of food. They can create their own current.
Second.
That's
And
probably
that's-
why other organisms want to associate
Okay.
with
That's
it
good.
too.
Right.
So confirming this is going in B, Bravo.
Yes.
Okay, you can open the box. Come on, you little rascal. There we go.
So is
Okay, we got
there
that. Close the box, please. And we'll try to get that other part too.
Yeah, that would be
is
great.
there a way to bring the box to the sample
Okay, you can
Like this one is so
give me
fragile.
forward view, regular dive, whatever it's called, salvo.
Sometimes when you're on a
Keep
very
keep
steep
bubble in that spot.
wall and
Sorry.
you want to sample something, the pilot would
Tilt up.
put the ROV right
Yeah, good
underneath
there.
the sample, open up
You
the
can leave it there
box,
that whole time
and
as
then
well.
Okay.
like knock it off the wall so it falls
It
into the
falls
box.
into it.
They got all types of really cool techniques to
Uh-huh.
collect samples under different conditions.
Yeah.
Okay, push in there, please. Let's try this. That might not work, but we'll find out. Oh, it might.
And like for this sponge, does the pressure change or affect the structure of this?
No, because one of the things about this sponge
Yeah, stop
is that it's in a group that we refer to as hard sponges, which means that in the soft sponges, like those big polyopogon,
Okay, come wide,
their
please.
spicules are loose in the tissue.
See if I can feather that
And
grip.
they're very fine. They're very small, little silica, microscopic parts that give it some structure, but they're loose. And so when you squeeze it, it feels like a kitchen sponge. It bounces back. These guys, instead, they glue their spicules together with additional silica, and they create a very rigid, durable type of structure. And framework is what it's called. And in technical terms, they call it a dictyonal framework. And essentially, that's what they do. They adhere them
sample
together.
salvo, please. And you can open the box.
Well, that was a very nice and clean pickup.
Hold on there. Oh, no.
That's
Okay, keep going out. Nice.
That was very well done.
Thank you.
Nice.
Don't try this
Great.
at home, folks, with the glass sponges in your yard. It's not going to work.
That was beautiful.
See, and again, I don't
forward
think a
view,
lot of the
please.
viewers realize how hard that is because you have to
Sorry, that
create
was sample 042. Oh, 42.
you have to create a 3D headspace right there in order to.
All right.
Yay,
Excellent.
good job.
Way to
Thank you.
go.
Cover.
Nice.
Very good.
Woohoo.
Thanks for the opportunity. All right, vertical thruster on.
I think he's done this before.
I think so.
Yeah.
And the sponge will live another day.
Yes, it
Just
will.
A little off the top. Just
Yep.
barbershop.
Now the tiny little pieces that fell, would that start another sponge?
It's a
Or
good.
do they just reproduce through?
It's a good question. I suspect because they'll probably be lying flat that you've kind of affected their filtering ability there, so they probably won't do well in settlement or sediment. But they were very small pieces. He got most of it. But certainly the remain of the main body of the sponge will do fine.
Okay,
And
cool. That's great. Yeah, this is our roll-off spot.
And we have a couple of questions here about our the ceremony that we conduct at the beginning of each watch or dive. Maybe this is for Andy. Can I ask Andy?
Yeah.
Okay, great. On this dive, you have a ceremony. Is Hawaii the only place where you do this? Or are there other places where we have ceremonies? Like New Zealand pops up in my mind.
Well, I think what's very unique about this expedition is that we've worked very closely with a group called our Cultural Working Group for Papahanaumokuakea Marine National Monument that helps to integrate proper Hawaiian protocol into the science that we do. And I'm not aware that, at least for deep sea expeditions, that this has happened in other locations, but certainly other locations do have similar kinds of protocol for scientific or observational purposes. So in Hawaii, it is very customary before, say, you go into the forest to collect plants for intricate costumes that were worn during hula. They open the space, they ask for permission to go into the forest and ask for protection, and also to just permission to be able to collect these species. So that's very common in Hawaii, but it is common across in other cultures around the world, indigenous cultures around the world. But as far as I'm aware, this may be the first time of really integrating this into deep sea research and
Video zoom, please.
expedition. So we're very, very grateful to the Cultural Working Group for working
All right,
very
Chris, throw me a
closely
bone here.
with us on that.
Yes.
Oh, the bubblegum coral.
Yes.
Thank you, Andy.
I
Yeah.
think
I don't know,
Trevor's
Kainalu,
getting
do you
this.
want to add anything to that?
No, I think that was good. Yeah.
All right,
I think
thanks.
some people might ask, well, why do you have to ask permission? But I think it's respectful of the
is,
environment
yeah.
and the animals that live down here. And I think we could all be a little bit more respectful of the other inhabitants of our planet.
Yeah, it's a different way of looking at
Yeah.
our relationship between.
Could we look at this pilot? Excuse me, sorry, Andy.
Yeah,
Get a sponge
between
here?
humans
Yeah.
and their
Sure, go
environment.
ahead and zoom.
The top looks black.
Yeah, it's sorry,
Oh,
Andy. What
that
were
one.
you saying?
Yeah, I think it's a way of looking at your environment as not being a part of, separate from your environment, but being a part of your environment, and that's certainly a part of the Hawaiian cosmology and the way that they look at. They are a part of their environment. It's one and the same, and have even ancestors that are maybe animals, take animal form, and
All right,
even
thank you.
even down to the name of the monument kind of embolizes this with Papahanau Moku Akea, and Papahanau Moku is the Earth Mother deity, and Wakea is the Sky Father, and these two deities gave birth to not just the Hawaiian people,
Sure.
but also
Sounds
the
great.
Hawaiian Islands and everything else that are on them. So you can see right there, there's a connection between, there's no separation between humans and their environment. And therefore, when it comes to these protocol, you are part of your environment, so it's only a way to honor your ancestors and the deities that are in this place to ask permission to, and also to ask for safe passage. It's a way of being mindful of what's around you, and also kind of centering yourself to have deeper observation of what is going on around you. Too often I think we can be very focused, laser focused on one particular thing and ignore everything else, and that doesn't often, better is a more holistic observation of everything that's going on around you. So
Well
that's
said.
Thank you.
kind of the way I see it.
This is an
You said something there
interesting-
that really rang with me. Is you're saying why people might ask why we have to do the ceremony, but I don't know that it's about having to do the ceremony.
Yeah.
It's not that we have to. It's that we're choosing to do it, and it's a different mindset than doing a chore, for example.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
that's a good point. So that sponge you did a close-up of was really weird. I think it could be something that was collected for the first time in 2017 that could be a species in a genus called Hertwiggia.
Wigia?
Hertwiggia.
Ooh,
And,
I like that.
and the sponge before that particular collection was known only from the Atlantic. It was collected up in the Musician Seamounts, which are further east from us right now.
It looked like noodles.
Yeah, Very unusual sponge. That's a guess, of course. But anyway, we've got a document on that. We can look at the imagery a little bit better. You know, later on after the cruise.
So we got to that roll-off point, but it's less thriving full than I expected. Some stuff, but
We have a comment from a viewer after the explanation of the ceremony. The viewer says, I imagine the ceremony is reciprocal and that it feeds your minds and hearts with a peculiar feeling of awareness.
That's also well said.
Mm-hmm.
That's a very nice remark that viewer has brought up.
Yeah, definitely reciprocal relationship.
And personally, this is new to me, but when we saw the whales yesterday, or we were collecting this beautiful, observing this beautiful specimen, I am grateful for the life that exists in the ocean. And so, ola kanaloa, right?
Yep.
So Andy, did you check back with Robin about that whale? I'm still not.
Yeah.
I like to get him into, we used to call them fish fights, where we would battle over identification of fish.
He's still sticking to his guns on the fin whale.
The problem is that he's like a world's authority, and that kind of just...
He wrote the book, quite literally.
I know. So,
but
I was just so certain that it's hard to give in.
What's all this goo all over the sponge?
It's dead. Yeah. It's some sediment that's accumulating on it. This is kind of common of this type of sponge. It's called a Tritopleura. And
it still could be living. It just has the right.
All the white stuff is living, and then that kind of brown stuff is either dead or stuff that's trapped on it.
And what would kill a sponge?
If you had a big sediment event, sometimes, believe it or not, you can have these little sediment slides down slopes that could bury it and clog it.
Okay.
If a big fish, I mean, there are fish around here. In fact, there's some pretty big sharks we haven't seen yet. And if the shark bumps into it, he'll just knock it right off. And if the sponge lies flat, then it can't really filter anymore. It can't feed.
Right. And that's certainly one of the concerns with potential deep sea mining, because if they are collecting these materials off the bottom and then filtering them up at the ship, they have to release those materials back into the water column. And as they drift down, that's an increasing sediment load that's coming down onto the bottom, and it may affect some of these filter feeding organisms. So that's, I think, in the environmental impact statements that they're looking at for some of these proposed deep sea mining sites, that sediment plume coming off the ship is one of the biggest concerns. It could stretch for miles. And as you might imagine, in the center of the ocean where it is oligotrophic, right? The lack of nutrients, limited nutrients, you don't typically have these big sediment falls unless you have some event like that deep sea mining, which of course we won't have in Papahanaumokuakea because it's a fully protected marine area. But certainly between here in California and the Clarion-Clipperton zone, they have some leases and are looking at eventually doing some deep sea mining there. But the effects of that are still trying to figure out.
Could you talk a bit about the difference between a marine monument versus a marine sanctuary for regards to protections?
Yeah, sure. Well, so a marine national monument is similar to a monument on land, all of which were created by the Antiquities Act, which is an old act from 1906 that essentially allows a president to designate an area like a monument for scientific, cultural, historical purposes. And that was the act under which President Bush and then later President Obama expanded the marine protected area of Papahanaumokuakea. But one of the challenges with that is that it is created through a presidential executive order, and those can potentially be reversed by future presidents. So what we're considering right now for this area is a National Marine Sanctuary designation, which actually just kicked off on Friday, this past Friday. So we have a series of meetings in December, 4 meetings. They're over Zoom. You can get the information from our website at papahanaumokuakea.gov and participate in that process and let us know what you think about this consideration of creating National Marine Sanctuary. Ultimately, that if it goes through, and that's what the people want, it will provide for more permanent protection for this area because it's a congressional act to designate a National Marine Sanctuary. So those are kind of the big picture differences between a Marine National Monument and a National Marine Sanctuary, is the way that it's created and the potential permanence for that protection.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Pilot, I have a logistical question here. If we wanted to shoot for a recovery on the next watch change, what time would we have to leave the bottom? Maybe that's for the navigator, Aaron, there to answer. But
Yeah. I think we'll make 15 a minute. So now-ish.
now-ish?
It might be slightly slower. We're not super light. So maybe 14 meters a minute.
About now?
A soft to now.
You know, can I make an executive order? Or maybe do we need to go through Congress instead?
Go through Congress.
Executive
I'm not
order.
on SPL. I think this is Congress. Here we are.
Okay, I think we should go ahead and recover. I think from what I heard when I first came up that Beth is satisfied with the rock that she has, and that's the only open box is one of hers.
Okay.
So let's go ahead and bail and then get set up for the next one.
Sure thing.
Thank you very much.
No worries.
Remember the time last night when you said if a dive chief says we want to cancel, just tell him no and keep going?
Well, that was applying to other people, though.
Chris just wants, so Chris, there's a sponge.
Well, the issue, of course, is that we're racing against the weather system that's coming in a few days, and I'm trying to get as many of these northern dives in before that we have to scoot south in an avoidance maneuver.
Uh-oh.
So
Stole my dive sheet.
Big waves coming our way, right?
yeah, so we could potentially gain at least 4 hours to try to squeeze in a couple more dives here before that system comes in.
So what kind of swell state can we operate up to with the ROV launches? What's reasonable?
That's a hard question to answer. There's a lot of factors with weather that come into play. It's swell as well as swell direction, current, wind, and all their amounts, but also the directions. Hard to give a one-stop shop answer on that one.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Aphrodite just mentioned that we need to do this closing ceremony.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, great.
So we can do it right now? Can we do it right now?
Yeah, that works.
Okay, so for our audience, we are going to take a few moments here as we will be conducting a private ceremony protocol to acknowledge and honor the biocultural resources that are present and that we are interacting with and impacting. So we'll be back shortly on SPL. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. You doing your thing? Getting stretched out, all that fun stuff?
Sure, let's do it.
All right. Ridge nav.
Okay, I'll go stretched out and you can change your heading.
Martina, we're going to recover early, so we're getting ready to come up now. It'll still be about 2.5 hours to the surface. So we're expecting
You
somewhere
can change your
around
heading
heading
for recovery.
somewhere around watch change. We'll be at the surface. Thank you.
Well, this is certainly my most enjoyable dive.
Gonna go the other way.
Just because we saw a lot of beautiful rocks, but we also got a few more animals, which was nice.
It's nice.
So it was quite wonderful, and I'm hoping that this trend will continue for the dives we see from now on.
You just really like that giant sponge.
Yep, that was definitely a highlight, at least for me. I think the coral people have their own highlights.
Yeah, so if your viewers were interested in learning more about some of the cultural protocols, as well as our, we have a fairly new document out, which is the Native Hawaiian Management Step-Down Management Plan for Papahanaumokuakea. You can read all of this online if you go to oha.org, oha.org/Papahanaumokuakea. You can find that document as well as some of the protocol and why we do it and what it means on that site. There's also some great videos. Every member of this expedition prior to departure participated in a cultural briefing in which we learned about the cultural significance of this place and some of the practices that are put in place to protect, understand, respect this place. And that video is available on that website, as well as this the management document that I was referring to called Mai Kapo Mai. And what's very interesting,
yeah, great.
What's very interesting about that is you can learn how we are, how Hawaiian values, Hawaiian cultural understanding is integrated into the management of Papahanaumokuakea.
Yep.
So definitely,
ended with a sample.
Definitely go check that out. You can learn about the formation of that document through a recorded webinar there. And also some of the naming, how we go through the process of naming some of these species and the group that assists with giving them Hawaiian names. Because many of these organisms that we're coming across don't have Hawaiian names. So there's a whole nother group that's involved in giving these new species, or not new species, but observed species, Hawaiian names. So definitely go check that out. Again, it's oha.org/Papahanaumokuakea.
The Nautilus put out an article too about the naming of the expedition that was really cool as well. And I think that's on all their social media pages and on nautiluslive.org.
Yeah, that's on there as well.
And Andy, is the process of going through the sanctuary nomination, is that open to everybody in the world, or is it just
yeah.
Oh, okay.
No, the comment, anybody can participate.
In the Zoom meetings?
In the Zoom meetings, or just providing comment online through the end of January. The comment period for the initial scoping meetings on considering this area as a National Marine Sanctuary is open to everybody in the world. I mean, as Papahanaumokuakea is a World Heritage Site. It's designated on both natural and cultural grounds. It's called a mixed site. World Heritage Sites are often either designated for natural features or cultural features, and a few, less than 40, are designated for both, for natural and cultural features. And Papahanaumokuakea is the only mixed natural cultural site in the United States. And so that, aside from just these large areas being protected for all humans on the planet,